So we have a number of students who are being honored tonight for their accomplishments for all-state music, and we would invite their music teacher, Ms. Gingras, and the students to come up to the podium as we will begin the meeting with them singing the national anthem. We have a number of those students who are participating in swim and wrestling, so we're going to preempt that possibly.
School committee had an executive session and there were no votes taken in executive session. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on November 20th.
So moved.
Motion made, is there a second? Mr. Marciano, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Chair will also entertain a motion to approve the executive session minutes on November 20th.
So moved. Second. Okay.
And Mr. Marciano to seal those minutes, correct? Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next order of business is correspondence. We have correspondence from the North Smithfield School Committee regarding a resolution on field trip funding law, and also a resolution from the Woonsocket School Committee modifying the Rhode Island General Law to permit charging for field trips. It's a pleasure
Motion.
of the committee.
Motion to place those correspondence on file.
Motion made by Mr. Marciano, seconded by Mr. Andriozzi. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. We have no public comments. Move on to the consent agenda.
Motion
School
made to
requests,
approve.
field trips, leave of absence, resignations, appointments, and retirements.
Motion made to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr.
Discussion?
De Silva, seconded by Mr. Marciano. Question? Mrs.
I'm just
Picard.
curious about the homeschool that has no information, just an overall.
It's usually, I think, usually included in the packet. I'm not sure.
Just the overall 330 minutes. It doesn't have Ms. Sightsinger's signature on it either, so I'm wondering.
Okay, so
maybe-
we could table that item and get back to you, and table that till January.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. De Silva, you rescind that motion to table? Yes. Motion.
Motion made to approve the consent agenda without the homeschooling piece.
And to table the homeschool request.
Correct.
Mr. Marciano, you good with that? Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, Dr. Pilata. One item that I would like to mention, in the consent agenda, we did approve 2 retirements with regret. First one is for grade 5 teacher at Greystone, Donna DeCurtis. She will be retiring at the conclusion of the current school year. I was with Donna today at Greystone. She's a tremendous grade 5 teacher at Greystone, has taught there for approximately close to 40 years, and she'll be a tremendous loss and a great asset to our community. Also, Susan Bennett, assistant principal at Ritchie Middle School, has submitted her retirement, but it is effective for next December 31st, 2021. So we will have the remainder of this school year. 2020. Yes, okay, you're correct. So we'll have the remainder of this school year and the first half of next year with Mrs. Bennett remaining as our assistant principal at Ritchie Middle School. Both will be tremendous losses to the North Providence school system, and we wish them luck in their retirement. Next item on the agenda under the Superintendent's Report, as I mentioned earlier, we have a number of students, very proud accomplishment for the North Providence High School music program, numerous students who earned all-state honors, and we would like to honor them this evening. So at this time, I would ask music teacher Amy Gingras to come up to the podium, and the students will be called one by one, and they will be presented by the chair of the school committee with certificates of recognition from the school committee. Here you go, Amy. Yeah, so if you want to just say a little bit about the category in general, and then just read the names and have them come up, and then Dr. Pallotta will give them the certificate. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Goho. Every year, the Rhode Island Music Educators Association holds auditions for all-state ensembles. So it could be choral, it could be instrumental, and so from the entire state, they have a certain number of students that they can select. And so the following students this year were selected for the Senior All-State Mixed Choir, and that is Hope Born. So I'll announce those that are not here first, and then those that are here, so then when you hear your name, you can come up. So Hope Born, Emily Estrella, Caleb Ofori Apia, Heaven Perez, Ashley Saravo, and Malachi Turnipseed. And those here this evening are Ty De Silva and Ethan Janau. Oh, sorry. And then we had students who were selected for the All-State Treble Choir. So these are female voices only, and those accepted are Annabelle Castellucci, Jenna Riley, Amber Ruggiero, and Kayla Sushite, and those present, Erin McKean. And for our Senior All-State Band, we had two students selected for Senior All-State Band. John Petita on flute, and Kyle Giamarco is here this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Gingras, and congratulations to our all-state music selection. Next on the item, next item on the agenda, I'll call up Athletic Director Mr. Glenn Williams, who will give recognition to all of our student athletes who earned all state and all division honors for the fall sports season.
Good evening, members of the school committee, Superintendent Goho, and guests. On behalf of the athletic department, I would like to thank you for having us here this evening. It is truly an honor to present to you North Providence High School's outstanding student athletes for the fall of 2019. At the end of each season, the Coaches Association of every sport meet to determine which student athletes made the biggest contribution to their respective teams. Based on their overall league play, teams are allotted a number of positions for all division selection. Coaches submit student athlete names, and the Coaches Association as a whole will vote who they will recognize as their all-division selections. Our fall season has awarded the following. I'll ask the students to come up As I call your name, Mr. Pilato will hand you a citation, and I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong. I tried to practice. We'll go girls soccer first. Division II, first team, all division, Raphael Brunetti. Division II, second team, all division, Jazz Juf. Division II, third team, all division, Michaela Rizzo and Sophia DiMarzo. Division II, academic, all division, Ashley Saravo. And Sportsmanship Award, Sophia Jeter. For boys soccer, we will have Division III, first team, all division, Dylan Auslander and Zachary Auslander. Division III, second team, all division, Habez Cuadrado and Juan Azevedo. Division III, third team, all division, Josh Souza. And Division III, academic, all division, Ethan Gemma. And for our final football, sport for the fall season, we'll do football. Division III, first team, all division, Timothy Walker, who's currently playing basketball. Caleb Afari Apare. Division III, second team, all division, Colin Anzavino. Antonio Pereira, who I did not see here. And Frank Setlin, who's currently wrestling. Division III, third team, all division, Justin Gonzalez. And Malachi Turnipseed, who is currently wrestling. And for the Division III academic, all division, Christian Almagno. Colin Anzavino. Dylan Auslander. Antonio Pereira and Malachi Turnipseed. And I just wanted to add to the fact that to make all academic teams, you had to have a 3.8 and higher, a GPA, for the season. So congratulations to all the athletes.
I would also like to note, first of all, congratulations to our student athletes again for their fall accomplishments. And I would also like to note one other retirement, Camilla Martin's grade 1 at McGuire, also effective at the end of the school year. So we had 3 retirements with regret accepted during the consent agenda. Next item on the agenda, we are going to table item C. Within the last couple of days, some discrepancies regarding Blue Cross billing of prescriptions has come to the attention of the union. They brought it to our attention in HR, so we're in the process of trying to work that out before we move forward with that MOU. So tabling item C. Next item on the agenda, item D. I'd like to ask for a vote to support my recommendation to deny the grievance of the middle school content leader.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Picard, seconded by Mr. Andriozzi. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda, I would like a vote for the committee to support my recommendation to move the certified staff member to unpaid leave status pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 16-13-5.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Picard, seconded by Mr. Andriozzi. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Moving to item F, Assistant Superintendent's Report, Mrs. Seitzinger.
Thank you, Superintendent Goho. Just wanted to say happy holidays to our school committee. Hope you enjoyed that time with your families. You did also receive the Assistant Superintendent update, the newsletter for the last couple of months. So you have a hard copy, and I'm also going to send you a digital copy because it has links that you can connect to in that document. So just a few updates. I've mentioned this before, that our school teams are creating drafts of their action plans in response to RICAS, our science and other assessment data to improve outcomes and reduce gaps in achievement. And we also met with Dr. Paul Ash, who's a retired superintendent from Lexington, Mass, on those specific plans, and he gave us a great feedback on really, diving into more specifically to those subgroups and student engagement. We talked about interventions, and we're going to kind of follow up with him on those plans, and also a district plan will be drafted along with the support of our special ed director and our ELL coordinator to really hone in on those subgroups for our students in special education and our multilingual students, so that we support their needs as well and achievement. So we're looking forward to that and following up, as I said, with Dr. Ash later in January. In terms of professional learning, we started our math book talk with the Rhode Island Intensive Math Intervention Project and our district math committee. And the book is Teaching Elementary Mathematics to Struggling Learners. So a great text that really focuses on evidence-based strategies, interventions. And we also met with our middle school content professionals in ELA this past couple of months. We worked with our district ELA team, and we are also doing a book study with them. And we're really focusing on, again, our RICAS data, our released items, and looking at the MASS framework and seeing what else we can do to further align our scope and sequence in our curriculum. Also, the Rhode Island Writing Project continues to work with both Centerdale and Ritchie schools on the writing workshop model, and they both participated in a Saturday workshop at RIC. And right now, currently, they're receiving coaching from the Rhode Island Writing Project. And in addition, teachers from Stephen Only invited Centerdale teachers to come to the school to participate in some classroom visits with the goal of improving their writers' workshop model. So that was really positive. And then one final thing, we are starting to work with our science curriculum team on piloting several science programs besides our current FOSS kits that we have. And one of them is STEM Scopes, and the other is Amplify, which are both highly rated programs. We are really excited about this work, and the pilots are in grades 4 and 7. You can see the schools respectively. They're both fully aligned programs. They have simulations that aligns to the current Rhode Island state assessment in science. They're highly rigorous and really ask the students to argue and think like scientists, so we're really excited about that. So at the end of the year, we'll decide as a science committee with the teachers and principals that are on that committee, and we'll decide which one worked best and what we think is best for our students in our district and our teachers. And also on that committee, we'll be looking at science data and examining released items and comparing that information against our current curriculum to look at our scope and sequence. And that's it. Happy New Year.
So thank you, Mrs. Seitzinger. One thing I do want to point out, the work with Dr. Ash has been really valuable. We had our second session with him, with the administrators recently, and he's a retired superintendent from Lawrence, Massachusetts, who saw a tremendous amount of success closing achievement gaps with various subgroups on the Massachusetts Achievement Test. And what he did in the second session last week was look at the preliminary action plans developed by our administrators. And while we all think that we know how to develop an action plan, which will include goals and objectives and steps and initiatives, having someone with the experience and the level of success that Dr. Ash has had really opened our eyes to the fact that action plans really need to be specific, measurable, and really hold various aspects of the school community accountable for tangible action. So that was a really tremendous session to make sure that our action plans really do accomplish what we want to accomplish. So very pleased with that. And there's been a tremendous amount of work. That conference room in the 2240 Mineral Spring Avenue has been very busy with curriculum committees in English, math, and science. So we're doing a lot of work to revise our scope and sequence to ensure that material is covered to ensure our students do succeed on the state assessments. And as Dr. Pilata had asked, is that curriculum online? And I responded to him that yes, all of our curriculum documents are online. And we still are awaiting the menu of choices from the state regarding the content area curriculum that they're going to be rolling out. The districts are going to have to choose.
Just to interject, so that should be happening by June 2020. We should be getting some recommendations, which will all be green in terms of how they're vetted on ed reports, meaning they're highly rated, fully aligned materials. So we're excited about that too.
So thank you for all of the good work that is coming out of the curriculum office. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Heisinger? Thank you. Moving on, are there any school committee we'll move on to new business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item, item A, I would request approval by the committee for the contract with Kids Club to approve the lease agreement for them to continue with their after-school program. The document was submitted to you in your packet. I'm requesting approval of that agreement.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Andriozzi, seconded by Mr. Pollock. Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda, item B, I would request approval by the committee for the removal of books and equipment from Centerdale Elementary School.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Andriozzi, seconded by Mr. De Silva. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Item C, I'm requesting approval by the school committee for the third read and the final approval of our revised property usage policy, which contains all of the edits that have been recommended by the committee through the various reads that have been initiated.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Marciano, seconded by Mr. Andriozzi. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, item D, I would request approval by the school committee for our revised transportation policy. And again, that also includes all of the edits and suggestions made by the full committee throughout the process of the reading. This is the third read and the final approval of the transportation policy. And just to note, Mrs. Picard had asked this question. It's a good one. Many of the issues that were brought to us by a parent in one of our recent meetings, many of the issues were, very well thought out and legitimate issues, and the new revised transportation policy does address many of the concerns that were brought forward. So at this point, I would request approval in the third read.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Marciano, seconded by Mr. Corsini. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is item E, which is the discussion and the second read of our smoke-free schools policy. As I explained last month, this is patterned after the Rhode Island policy to include traditional tobacco products and electronic cigarettes. And I'm requesting discussion and acknowledgement of the second read.
Any discussion by any member?
Do I?
Hearing none.
I'm sorry. I'm just looking for
Pollock.
vaping. No vaping in there. Am I missing that?
What's the question, Mr. Pollock? I believe electronic cigarettes, vaping, that is referenced in the policy. Yeah, we made sure of that because I know that's obviously been a priority for you, but also the nation. So that is in there. Thank you.
If you have additional recommendations, you certainly can contact the superintendent prior to the next meeting and prior to the third reading. Thank you. Item F.
Item F is discussion, the second read for the transgender, gender nonforming, and transitioning student protocol policy. Recall, we had the first reading last month. This is a federal requirement that school districts have a policy in place, and it's also a mandate by the Department of Education. So this is not a new policy. We've had this policy in place. However, RIDE has recommended various suggestions regarding new terminology that has emerged, and our policy has been revised to reflect that terminology.
Any discussion? Once again, if you have any recommendations, please just notify the superintendent prior to the next meeting and the third reading. Next item.
Next item is item G, discussion in the second reading for our threat assessment policy. I think we've covered this one thoroughly under the leadership of Ms. Van Avery, our Special Education Director. So this is the second read of that policy.
Same clarification. Any questions? Why don't we take H, I, and J together, Mr. Goho?
Thank you. So yes, H is the staff hiring policy. I is the administrator compensation policy. J is the school improvement team policy. These are all the first reads, and I will group those three together. These three policies are in response to the new education reform law, which takes effect January 1st. For the staff hiring policy and for the school improvement team policy, it's not really a tremendous departure from what has been in place and what our current practice has been in those areas for many years. It just codifies those policies so that they are aligned to the new education reform law. And the administrator compensation policy is a sister policy for the staff hiring policy. So these three items are on the agenda for the first read.
Any questions for discussion? Hearing none, moving on to item K.
Item K is a discussion in the first read for the revision of our existing naloxone model policy. We've had a naloxone Narcan policy in place for many years. The state recently revised that state law, so we sent those revisions to our nurses, and under the direction of Mrs. Van Avery, the policy has been revised. No great changes to that, but there were some linguistic changes and some procedural changes. And so the policy does reflect the changes as mandated by state law.
Any questions or discussion? Once again, if you have any recommendations, just please contact the superintendent prior to the second reading. Thank you. Item L.
Last item, requesting approval by the committee for our sports spring equipment bid.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Marciano, seconded by Mrs. Picard. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Dr. Pilata.
Moving on to use of property. Chair will entertain a motion for the use of property request.
Motion made to approve use of property as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. De Silva, seconded by Mr. Pollock.
Then I just have a quick question.
Questions? Mr. De Silva.
I'm assuming all of these get vetted before they come here, so when they're here for the intention of us approving them. Is that a fair assumption?
That would be correct, and if there's anything that you would like to add to that question, Mr. Fioroli, feel free. I know that you and Tina vet those use of property forms, and anything that's perplexing, I know you bring to my attention.
Good. So going forward, I'm suspecting the use of property will be diminished because some things won't make it here because they'll get vetted out, like those dances and those things.
Correct. There has been a discussion of trying to minimize the usage of our gymnasiums, and particularly the auditorium at the high school, by large outside businesses and agencies. The wear and tear on those facilities just is not worth it for us, even with the rental fee. So we're taking a close look at minimizing those.
Any other discussion? There is a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to approval of bills. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion made to approve the bills as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. De Silva, seconded by Mr. Andriozzi. Discussion. Your question? No. Okay.
I agree. I second that. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We have no requests to address the committee. We have no pending business. The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn. A second.
Motion by Mr. Marciano, seconded by Mr. Pollock. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.